Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica, another episode of the Unported playlist where we take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. Today we're taking a look at Operation Thunder Hurricane, released in 1997 by Konami. This is basically a military light gun shooter. You're flying in a helicopter the entire time and you're shooting your enemy, so it's pretty much a standard light gun shooter. Before we get too far involved, if you do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined, we got a Patreon link down there as well if you want to support the channel. But Operation Thunder Hurricane is definitely one of the rare Konami light gun games, and a lot of Konami games came out pretty prevalently in arcades. This is one that I saw in the 90s, and I never actually played it because it didn't look that interesting. But having played it as an adult, it is a really good light gun shooting game, even if it clearly looks super old and super dated. And Konami was a really interesting company because in 1997, they had stuff coming out on the Konami 3DO M2 board, and a lot of other platforms that were way more graphically capable than the content you're looking at now. But graphics definitely don't make or break a game. If the gameplay is good, I can look past bad graphics, and if the gameplay is bad, I don't really care how good the graphics are. But man, is that jungle floor there ever pixelated. This kind of looks like Henry Explorers or Crypt Killer on the Konami arcade boards as well, which isn't to say that the games aren't good, because they are great, and I really enjoy them, but this is definitely one that looks like it came from maybe 93, 94, not 97. But outside of that, if you like light gun games, you're definitely going to find a lot to like in Operation Thunder Hurricane, because it is a really interesting and fun game to play. And if you've been watching my channel whatsoever, you know I love light gun arcade games, so for me, any decent one is always going to be something I love. But what you're seeing is exactly what you get. The interesting thing about this game, though, is it seems to like to mix up genres of war, which is a strange thing to say. But right here, we're going into what looks like a temple, and you're going to see very quickly that those temples are hiding something. But then we end up in a desert scene where the tanks kind of look like World War II era German Panzer tanks with their decoration. It seems like they're taking every single war and trying to make levels out of it. There's one level where you're going upriver in a boat that looks very much like Vietnam, so it seems like the developers were thinking, what are the most famous wars and how can we turn that into a video game? And you'll see here in those temples there are these gigantic tanks waiting. And I like this game and the way that you move around in it. It feels definitely very similar to LA Machine Guns and Gunblade New York. I think maybe Konami was trying to do something similar with that, because sometimes you're really low on the ground, you know, almost at character level. Sometimes you're high up in the air like you actually are in a helicopter, and sometimes the helicopter is flying through walls, which makes no sense whatsoever. So it's kind of fast and loose as to how everything kind of plays out, but you're still going to have a ton of fun with this game. I am emulating it in MAME and it works perfect. The only glitches I had the entire time were during the credit sequence, and honestly, that's not gameplay, so really it's easy to forgive and forget that. But now we're going through what looks like a European town, almost like a World War II setting. We have these guys shooting rocket launchers at us, and that's really kind of the game's only projectile, is they're going to be shooting rocket launchers at you or shooting, you know, tank missiles the entire time. And apparently this army only uses rocket launchers. They don't have any normal firearms, so I guess that's what they wanted to buy. But it's just a fun game. If you like light gun games, you're definitely going to enjoy Operation Thunder Hurricane. If you don't love the genre, but you like playing them now and again, there's definitely other games in the light gun genre that you're going to enjoy more than this one. This is kind of a deep cut for really big fans of arcade light gun games. And you'll see there, that helicopter just went through that tunnel and definitely touched the wall. I've been in a few helicopters in my life, and I can definitely say touching walls is ill-advised if you are flying pretty much anything. And you'll see there we finally take our first death, and I will say this game is relatively fair until you get towards the later levels, and then it becomes very difficult and it's going to want to steal your lunch money. But luckily with emulation we're not actually putting quarters in, so it doesn't matter. And you'll see now what I say about that, like, situational weirdness. We just went from a European walled town to a desert, which looks like it has German Panzer tanks going through it. And as we come over the ridge, the setting is going to change into a rail yard. So the game definitely seems to really like to jump around in its setting, which I kind of actually like. All the levels feel cohesive but unique in their own way, and it definitely gives you something to look at as you're going through the game. But this is definitely a game that you maybe never saw in arcades, because like I said, This isn't one that gets mentioned much at all. It never got ported home to anything, so it's not something that you're going to get a chance really to play. I cannot imagine an arcade having this on the floor right now because I really don't think it was popular back in the 90s, and obviously only the biggest hits of that era, things like House of the Dead, are going to be things that you still see appearing on an arcade floor. What I'll let you do now, right after this boss battle, is I'll let you watch some of the next level, just to hear the sound effects and the music. The music's pretty good. I will say that the machine gun sound effect that comes out of your helicopter sounds really hollow and flat, and I wish they'd amp that up a little bit more, but honestly I get trying to fade that gunshot noise into the background because it does get repetitive. And you can fail missions. I don't know what I did wrong there, but it just happened. But now we're going upriver in what looks like Vietnam, so I'll let you guys watch a little bit of the gameplay, enjoy the sound effects and music. I'll be back in about a minute and we will talk a little bit more about Operation Thunder Hurricane. But enjoy. So I will say there is some strategy involved in this game. It is light, but in the top left hand corner you'll see I have 3 missiles, and if you save those up for boss fights, I clear the boss with just those 3 missiles. If you didn't have any, that fight can take upwards to a minute, and you're definitely going to take a lot of damage. So as far as any light gun game can have strategy, saving up those missiles to shoot at the bosses is definitely going to help you out. Because like I said, as you get into later levels in this game, it definitely can feel a lot cheaper to play. But as far as the game itself is concerned, this isn't in the same league as something like House of the Dead, Evil Knight, or a lot of the other light gun arcade games on the market. This seems like a much cheaper production from Konami. I mean, it came in a really big cabinet with a projection TV, and it was definitely a really big and feature-rich cabinet, but as far as the game's concerned, it definitely feels like maybe a B-tier product from Konami. They wanted to get something new out onto arcade floors, but it doesn't really have that same flair as some of the other games Konami or Sega made, which isn't to say it's a bad game whatsoever. It is a lot of fun, and I like the environments, and I like how the game plays. It just doesn't have that sort of high production value vibe that you would be thinking of. But short of that, that is Operation Thunder Hurricane. If you've ever played it, leave me a comment below. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear as well. You'll see right there, the game is getting a lot harder as it goes on further. But we will be back next Sunday with an Unported arcade game. We'll be back on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday as well with other videos in those series. But thanks again for watching, guys. And like I said, if you can do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Definitely helps us out. But we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.